Late 1944. High above the industrial heartland of Nazi Germany, Captain Don Gentile, at the controls of his P-51 Mustang, faced a desperate choice. German fighters swarmed, and ground radar locked onto his position, painting him as an easy target. With his mission hanging in the balance, a desperate, impossible maneuver would either seal his fate or redefine aerial combat forever. To understand how it happened, we must go back to the brutal realities of the air war over Europe in the latter half of 1944. By this point, the conflict had escalated into a relentless grind, with Allied air forces pushing deeper and deeper into German territory. The skies above the Third Reich had become a complex, multi-layered battlefield, a testament to both technological innovation and the sheer courage of the men who flew. The P-51 Mustang, a marvel of engineering with its laminar flow wing and powerful Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, had emerged as the undisputed king of the skies. Its exceptional range allowed it to escort bomber formations all the way to their targets and back, providing vital protection against the Luftwaffe's dwindling but still dangerous fighter arm. These deep penetration missions were not mere flights. They were intricate ballets of destruction and survival, pushing both man and machine to their absolute limits. German defenses, though increasingly strained by the relentless Allied bombing campaigns, remained formidable and constantly evolved. They deployed improved radar systems, more accurate and potent anti-aircraft artillery, and increasingly desperate, yet highly skilled, fighter pilots flying advanced variants of their Messerschmitts and Focke-Wulfs. The cat-and-mouse game played out daily, a relentless struggle for air superiority that directly determined the pace and success of the ground war below. Allied pilots, flying hundreds of miles from their bases in England, knew that every flight could be their last, constantly adapting to new threats and devising innovative tactics to survive and succeed in an environment where the margin for error was razor-thin. On this particular mission, Captain Gentile's squadron, part of a massive bomber escort package, had penetrated deep into German airspace, targeting vital synthetic fuel plants near Leipzig. These facilities were the lifeblood of the German war machine, and their destruction was a top priority. The initial engagement had been fierce, a swirling, chaotic dogfight against a determined force of Bf-109s and FW-190s, who rose in desperate waves to defend their homeland. The bombers, though battered, had pressed onto their targets, but the escort had been scattered in the melee. Gentile, in his distinctive P-51B Mustang Shangri-La, a machine as legendary as its pilot, found himself separated from his wingman, a dangerous predicament deep behind enemy lines. He was now pursued by a pair of aggressive Bf-109s, their pilots skilled and relentless. More ominously, he had been caught in the unforgiving electronic gaze of German ground radar. Flak bursts, black and angry, began to blossom around him, guided by unseen eyes on the ground, their proximity growing with each passing second. The air was thick with the acrid smell of cordite from distant explosions, and the thunderous roar of his own Merlin engine, a constant companion in the deadly silence of high-altitude combat. He was alone, deep behind enemy lines, with the odds stacked heavily against him. The conventional evasive maneuvers, honed through countless hours of training and combat, were proving insufficient against the coordinated onslaught from both air and ground. He needed an immediate, radical solution, something that would break the enemy's lock and give him a fighting chance to escape the deadly trap that was rapidly closing around him. The pressure was immense, the stakes immeasurable. This was Don Gentile, known to his comrades as Donny Boy, or more famously the Ace of Aces. His reputation preceded him, a legend forged in the crucible of aerial combat over Europe. He was known not just for his impressive tally of enemy aircraft destroyed, which would eventually climb to nearly 20 aerial victories, but for his aggressive, daring, and often unconventional approach to air fighting. Born in Piqua, Ohio, Gentile possessed an innate talent for flying, a natural affinity for the raw power and delicate control of an aircraft. From a young age, he seemed to understand the mechanics of flight intuitively, a gift that would serve him well in the chaos of war. His P-51B, Shangri-La, adorned with a distinctive shark mouth on its nose and a vibrant red spinner, was more than just a machine. It was an extension of his will, a symbol of his relentless pursuit of the enemy. His philosophy was simple, yet profoundly effective. Never give up, always find a way, no matter how impossible the odds seemed. He embodied the quintessential spirit of the fighter pilot, a potent blend of audacious courage, calculated risk-taking, and an unyielding will to win that made him one of the most feared and respected pilots in the European theatre. His presence alone was often enough to inspire confidence in his squadron mates and strike fear into the hearts of his adversaries. Don Gentile's journey to becoming one of the most celebrated aces of World War II began not in the United States Army Air Forces, but across the Atlantic, driven by an urgent sense of duty. Born on December 6, 1920 in Piqua, Ohio, Gentile displayed an early and profound fascination with aviation, spending countless hours at local airfields, absorbing every detail about the machines that soared above. He learned to fly before he could legally drive, demonstrating a natural aptitude and an almost preternatural understanding of aerodynamics that few possessed. His hands seemed to instinctively understand the subtle nuances of flight controls, and his eyes possessed a keenness that could spot a distant aircraft or an enemy maneuver long before others. When war erupted in Europe with the Nazi invasion of Poland and the subsequent Battle of Britain, Gentile, driven by a fierce desire to fight against tyranny, bypassed the still neutral American military and volunteered for the Royal Air Force. He joined the ranks of the famed Eagle squadrons, American volunteers flying for Britain, where he quickly distinguished himself. It was here, amidst the desperate struggle of the Battle of Britain and its aftermath, flying Hurricanes and Spitfires, that Gentile honed his combat skills, learning the brutal realities of dogfighting from battle-hardened British pilots. He absorbed their tactics, their discipline, and their unwavering resolve, but he also began to forge his own aggressive style, pushing the boundaries of conventional aerial warfare with a daring that often surprised his instructors. When the United States finally entered the war after Pearl Harbor, Gentile, along with many of his Eagle Squadron comrades, transferred to the newly formed U.S. Army Air Forces, becoming a foundational member of the legendary 4th Fighter Group, specifically the 336th Fighter Squadron. This transition brought him to the P-51 Mustang, an aircraft that perfectly complemented his audacious flying style, allowing him to combine raw aggression with surgical precision and unmatched endurance. His early victories quickly cemented his reputation as a formidable opponent. Flying the P-51, Gentile became a whirlwind of destruction, racking up kills with a relentless ferocity that astonished both allies and enemies alike. One notable instance saw him engage a formation of Focke-Wulf FW-190s over France, diving headlong into their midst, scattering them with a devastating burst of fire before picking them off one by one in a display of masterful airmanship. He often returned to base with his Mustang riddled with bullet holes, a testament to his willingness to press the attack to the absolute limit, always prioritizing the destruction of the enemy over his own safety, yet always returning. There was the time he chased a German fighter so low that his propeller tips nearly clipped the treetops of a dense forest, a daring pursuit that ended with the enemy aircraft crashing into a field, a smoking wreck. These were not reckless acts born of foolishness, but calculated risks born from a deep understanding of his aircraft's capabilities and his own extraordinary skill and unwavering confidence. He understood the psychological aspect of air combat, The constant pressure, the split-second decisions that meant the difference between life and death. It was through these intense, high-stakes experiences that Gentile developed his unconventional thinking, learning that sometimes, to survive and win, one had to break the established rules, to do the unexpected, to confound the enemy's expectations. He pushed the P-51 to its structural limits, mastering maneuvers that other pilots deemed impossible or suicidal, extracting every ounce of performance from the magnificent machine. He learned to use terrain, clouds, and even the blinding glare of the sun to his advantage, always seeking that fractional edge that could turn the tide of a fight in his favor. As the war progressed and the air campaign intensified, the stakes grew ever higher. Each mission demanded more, pushing pilots to the brink of physical and mental exhaustion. Yet Gentile's determination remained unwavering, his resolve hardening with every sortie. He knew that the conventional tactics, while effective against predictable enemies, were becoming less so against a desperate and evolving German defense. The enemy was learning, adapting, and their radar systems were becoming more sophisticated, making deep penetration missions increasingly perilous for the Allied fighter escorts. He sensed that a new approach was needed, a way to confound the enemy's technology and tactics, to turn their strengths into weaknesses. It was this growing realization, this understanding that the old ways might no longer suffice in the face of an increasingly cunning adversary, that set the stage for the moment when Captain Gentile would be forced to innovate, to gamble everything on a maneuver that would push the boundaries of aerial combat and challenge the very definition of evasion. The skies were changing, and Gentile was ready to change with them, or even ahead of them. The dilemma was stark and immediate. Captain Gentile was caught in a deadly crossfire, a classic German trap designed to overwhelm and destroy. Two Bf-109s, their yellow noses glinting menacingly, were closing fast from behind, their machine guns already spitting tracers that arced through the air like deadly fireworks. Below, the German ground radar had a firm, unwavering lock on his P-51, painting him as a clear target for their formidable anti-aircraft batteries. A barrage of heavy flak began to erupt in angry black puffs around him, their explosive charges sending shrapnel whistling past his cockpit. The rules of engagement, the standard evasive maneuvers taught in every flight school, sharp turns, sudden climbs, steep dives, were predictable. The German pilots, seasoned and aggressive, anticipated every move, ready to counter. The P-51, for all its speed, firepower, and legendary agility, was not a stealth aircraft. Its sleek metal airframe was a perfect reflector for radar waves, making it a clear, undeniable target on the enemy's screens. He was a single, vulnerable blip on a German radar screen, a sitting duck for the flak batteries below, a prize for the pursuing fighters. The choice was grim, almost impossible. Continue with conventional evasions and risk being overwhelmed by the combined assault, a certain path to destruction, or attempt something so audacious, so unheard of, so utterly unconventional, that it might just break the enemy's lock and buy him a chance at survival. The odds were stacked overwhelmingly against him, and every second brought him closer to certain destruction, the cold embrace of the inevitable. In that critical, heart-pounding moment, Gentile's mind raced, processing an overwhelming amount of data with lightning speed. He saw the tracers, felt the shudder of near misses from flak, and heard the urgent, primal warnings from his own instincts, honed by hundreds of hours of combat. He recalled countless hours of training, every dogfight, every close call, every lesson learned about pushing the P-51 to its absolute limits, about what the aircraft could endure and what he, as a pilot, could achieve. Conventional wisdom screamed at him to climb for altitude, to dive for speed, to turn sharply to shake the pursuers. But conventional wisdom, he knew, would lead to his demise in this specific, desperate situation. A sudden, audacious idea sparked in his mind. A maneuver so extreme it bordered on suicidal, a desperate gamble against overwhelming odds. He would use the P-51's raw power and his own exceptional skill to perform a radical, low-altitude maneuver, something that would not only disorient the pursuing fighters, but crucially, momentarily confuse the primitive German radar systems of the era. He would combine an inverted roll with an extreme low-level pass, using the terrain itself as a dynamic, shifting shield. The risk was immense: structural stress on the aircraft that could tear it apart, the very real possibility of losing control and smashing into the ground at hundreds of miles per hour, or becoming hopelessly disoriented and flying into an unseen obstacle. But it was a risk he had to take. It was the only path to survival he could conceive. With a surge of adrenaline coursing through his veins, Gentile pushed the P-51 into a steep, inverted dive, the world outside his canopy flipping violently as the horizon spun. He held the stick forward with an iron grip, pushing the magnificent Mustang onto its back, flying upside down, just meters above the jagged treetops of a dense German forest. The Rolls-Royce Merlin engine screamed in protest, its 12 cylinders roaring a defiant symphony as he poured on every ounce of available power, pushing the throttle to the firewall. He pulled back on the stick, not to climb, but to maintain inverted flight, skimming the earth with terrifying precision, the wingtips almost brushing the branches below. The ground rushed past in a dizzying blur, a kaleidoscope of green and brown, a terrifyingly close tapestry of fields, trees, and small villages. He felt the immense G-forces pressing him into his seat, his vision tunneling, but his focus remained absolute, his eyes scanning for any obstacle. On the ground, German radar operators watched in stunned disbelief as the blip representing Gentile's P-51 suddenly executed an impossible maneuver, dropping below their effective tracking altitude, then appearing to vanish amidst the ground clutter and the sheer audacity of the inverted low-level pass. The pursuing Bf-109s, caught completely off guard by the sudden, violent change in Gentile's flight path, overshot wildly, losing visual contact as he disappeared into the undulating terrain, a ghost in the landscape. The flak batteries, their radar lock broken and their targeting systems confused by the vanishing target, fired wildly and ineffectively, their shells exploding harmlessly behind him, their fury spent on empty air. The P-51, a blur of silver and red, roared through the valley, its engines a defiant scream against the silence of the baffled enemy, leaving a trail of stunned confusion in its wake. As suddenly as it began, the maneuver ended. Gentile, with a final precise roll that was as smooth as it was practiced, righted his P-51, emerging from the valley alone, clear of immediate threat. On the German radar screens, the blip had indeed vanished, leaving behind only confusion and disbelief, a mystery for their frustrated operators. He had bought himself precious seconds, a chance to escape or re-engage on his own terms, a ghost in the machine of aerial warfare, a testament to human ingenuity. Gentile's successful return to base was met with a mixture of profound relief and utter astonishment. His P-51, Shangri-La, bore the scars of the intense engagement, new bullet holes, scorched paint from near misses, and the telltale signs of extreme stress on its airframe, but the pilot was unharmed, albeit physically and mentally drained from the immense strain. In the debriefing, his account of the inverted low-altitude evasion was met with initial skepticism, then growing awe as he calmly recounted the details. His fellow pilots, many of whom had witnessed his daring before, listened intently, understanding the sheer audacity and unparalleled skill required for such a maneuver. They knew the risks involved and the precision it demanded. Later, Intelligence reports, piecing together fragmented German radar logs and bewildered enemy pilot testimonies, confirmed the vanishing act. The German operators had indeed reported a sudden, inexplicable loss of contact, followed by confusion and a frantic scramble to reacquire the target that had simply disappeared. This event, while perhaps not literally turning his P-51 into a stealth fighter in the modern sense of radar-absorbing materials and advanced electronic countermeasures, demonstrated a profound tactical implication. Human ingenuity and extreme piloting skill could, under specific circumstances, confound even the most advanced enemy technology of the era. It was a powerful boost to squadron morale, solidifying Gentile's legend and inspiring others to think beyond conventional limits, to explore the boundaries of what was possible in the cockpit. This singular act of daring, and countless others like it, performed by pilots who constantly pushed the boundaries of aerial combat, had a subtle yet significant influence on subsequent air combat strategy and pilot training. While inverted low-altitude flight didn't become a standard maneuver in the curriculum, the principle behind it, using unconventional tactics to exploit technological blind spots and psychological weaknesses, was deeply absorbed by Allied air forces. It highlighted the critical importance of pilot initiative, adaptability, and creative problem-solving in an increasingly complex and technologically driven aerial battlefield. The psychological impact on enemy forces was considerable. Reports of Allied pilots performing seemingly impossible evasions sowed uncertainty and doubt among German commanders and air crews, forcing them to constantly second-guess their own systems and tactics. It underscored the P-51's remarkable adaptability, not just as a robust fighting machine capable of absorbing punishment and delivering devastating blows, but as a platform that, in the hands of a master, could be coaxed into extraordinary feats of evasion and deception. Ultimately, it reinforced the enduring idea that human skill, audacious courage, and an unyielding will could, at times, overcome the limitations of technology, turning a conventional fighter into an instrument of tactical surprise and a symbol of defiance against overwhelming odds. After the war, Don Gentile, a true American hero, continued his distinguished service in the newly formed United States Air Force. He remained a celebrated figure, a living legend, and a symbol of the daring and skill that defined the Allied air effort during World War II. His post-war career included various assignments, where he continued to contribute to aviation, sharing his vast combat experience and insights with new generations of pilots. However, his life, so often lived on the razor's edge of combat, came to a tragically premature end, not in battle, but in a non-combat flying accident in 1951 at the age of 30. He was flying a T-33 jet trainer, a routine flight, when it crashed, robbing the world of one of its most gifted and courageous aviators. Despite his untimely death, Gentile's legacy as one of the most aggressive and skilled aces of World War II endures brightly. He was officially credited with 1983 aerial victories and 6 ground victories, a truly remarkable tally that stands as a testament to his relentless pursuit of the enemy and his unwavering commitment to his mission. His story, and the legend of Shangri-La, became a beacon of courage, innovation, and sacrifice for generations of pilots and aviation enthusiasts, inspiring them to push their own limits. The story of Captain Don Gentile reminds us that true stealth is not always about advanced technology, radar-absorbing paint, or sophisticated electronic countermeasures, but often about the audacious spirit of those who dare to challenge the impossible. It is a profound testament to the human capacity for innovation under immense pressure, the courage to defy conventional wisdom, and the unwavering determination to find a way, even when all hope seems lost and the odds are stacked against you. His upside-down flying was more than just a maneuver. It was a powerful declaration that the human will, when tempered by exceptional skill and ignited by an unshakable purpose, can overcome any obstacle, turning a conventional machine into an instrument of legend. This is the true legacy of pilots like Gentile, the enduring proof that even in the darkest times, a few determined individuals, through their sheer audacity and skill, can change history, one impossible maneuver at a time, leaving an indelible mark on the annals of warfare and human endeavor.